Recently, through my wife's friend, I accidentally discovered that she had been unfaithful for the past 20 years. I decided to end our marriage. My wife, 44 female, and I, 43 male, have shared 20 years of marriage, and our journey began when we were high school sweethearts. She was a senior, and I was a junior. Our relationship endured a long-distance phase during her first 2 years of college, while I finished high school and completed a year at community college. Eventually, we attended college in the same city, and from that point we have been inseparable, living together and building our life. We married the summer after my college graduation, and overall, our marriage has been wonderful. However, I recently initiated a divorce after uncovering that she had been involved with multiple men during those 2 long-distance years. Just after Christmas, we had a small reunion with a few of my wife's college friends. It was a cozy evening filled with laughter and reminiscing as we caught up over dinner and shared memories. During the conversation, my wife casually mentioned that we met in high school. She didn't clarify that we were dating back then, just that we had known each other since high school. One of her old college roommates exclaimed how remarkable it was that we met so young, had our wild college years, and still ended up together. I played along, jokingly saying I wasn't sure if my wife was as wild as I had been. At that moment, the roommate began to share a story. But my wife abruptly cut her off, saying she felt uncomfortable. Her sudden reaction made my senses tingle with suspicion. I decided to clarify things and mentioned that we actually started dating in high school and remained together throughout her entire college experience. An awkward silence fell over the table, and the rest of the evening was noticeably tense. As we were leaving, one of her other roommates pulled me aside and suggested I should have an honest conversation with my wife about what really happened during her college years. On the way home from dinner, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling I had. So I asked my wife about what her roommate had hinted at. She kind of blew me off, saying it wasn't a big deal. I told her it was important that she be honest with me, but she brushed it off again, insisting it wasn't important. Her dismissive attitude only heightened my suspicion. When we got home, I decided to take a firm stand. I told her I was going to stay at my brother's house until she was ready to talk about what had really happened during her college years. The next day she came over, visibly anxious. She finally admitted to sleeping with several men during her first 2 years of college. She tried to downplay it, saying she didn't consider it a big deal at the time because we were long distance and she didn't think our high school romance would last. This revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. I pressed for more details, feeling a mix of anger and betrayal. She confessed that it was at least 10 different men, including at least 3 guys she had introduced to me as friends during my weekend visits, and 1 guy she was still in contact with. Hearing this, I felt a surge of emotions: anger, sadness, betrayal. I knew our marriage couldn't survive this. I told her I wanted a divorce and would start the paperwork as soon as possible. True to my word, I began the process on January 2nd. Her attempts to downplay her actions and dismiss my feelings only solidified my decision. This wasn't just about the infidelity. It was about the lies and the disrespect that had spanned decades. Her family and most of my family are telling me I shouldn't throw away my marriage over a few mistakes. They keep saying that everyone makes mistakes and that I should forgive her for the sake of our long history together. But to me, this isn't just about a few mistakes. It's about a pattern of behavior that spanned years. Cheating on me with multiple men for 2 years is not something I can overlook, no matter when it happened. The fact that she continued to maintain relationships with these guys right in front of me, even introducing them as friends, is an unacceptable level of disrespect. Our children are 17 and 19, practically adults, and I believe they will understand why I need to end the marriage. They've seen us as a loving couple, and I hope they realize that my decision is about preserving my self-respect and integrity. I feel like I'm losing my mind with the number of people telling me to overlook years of infidelity and decades of lies. Everywhere I turn, I hear voices urging me to forgive and forget, to salvage what we've built. They tell me I'm being unreasonable, that I should focus on the good times and the life we've shared. But how can I, when every memory is now tainted by the knowledge of her betrayal? It's not just the act of cheating. It's the deceit, the lies, the continuation of friendships with those she cheated with. How am I supposed to trust her again? How am I supposed to look at her the same way, knowing what she did, and how she dismissed my feelings when I confronted her? I keep questioning myself, wondering if I'm overreacting, if I'm being too harsh. But then I remember the pain I felt when she admitted to her affairs. The anger and betrayal that surged through me. I remember the nights spent wondering how she could introduce me to those men. How she could maintain those friendships without a hint of guilt. It's not something I can simply get over. It's a fundamental breach of trust that has shattered our marriage. Am I wrong for leaving? I don't think so. I feel like I'm fighting for my dignity. For my right to not be lied to not be disrespected in such a profound way. It's not about revenge or holding a grudge. It's about acknowledging that some lines, once crossed, cannot be uncrossed. I'm writing this because my wife and a few of her friends have been telling me it's normal to sleep with other people in a long-distance relationship, and that I'm the odd one out for not doing the same. I felt like I was being gaslit and needed an outside perspective. Since we live in a state with a waiting period to finalize a divorce, I thought it would be wise to get some insight before things are set in stone. After hearing these comments, I see a handful of people agreeing that it's common to sleep around in long-distance relationships, but they seem to be a minority. During those 2 years of college, we saw each other a couple of weekends a month. I lived about 3 hours away from her college, so while it was long distance, it wasn't like we were separated by the entire country. We didn't go months without seeing each other. The 3 guys I met while she was in college were introduced to me during parties. These weren't formal introductions, just casual meetups at social gatherings. The topic of me being her boyfriend never really came up, so I have no idea if they knew we were in a relationship. One of these guys is still in our lives because he married a mutual friend from college. He isn't some secret contact she's been messaging on the side. He's someone we've both been in touch with regularly for years. After finding out about my wife's infidelity, I spoke to him a few times to understand his side. He told me he had no idea we were dating back then and has since blocked my wife on social media out of respect for me. Some people have questioned how her college roommates didn't figure out the timeline at our wedding. The answer lies in how we handled our marriage celebrations. My wife and I had a very small ceremony with just close family in Texas. Later we went back to the East Coast and threw a big party for our friends. We skipped the typical wedding reception traditions where couples share details about how they met and their journey together. Because of this, her roommates never pieced together that we started dating before she went to college. They seemed to assume that we only started dating during the year we both lived in the same city and then moved in together. This gap in their understanding explains why they never questioned the timeline or suspected any infidelity. I was open to therapy or some kind of attempt to save the marriage. I genuinely believed that with some effort we might be able to work through this. But her constant insistence that what she did was perfectly normal and that I'm the one who's overreacting has been too much for me to handle. She keeps telling me that sleeping with other people in a long-distance relationship is commonplace, and that I'm being unreasonable. The only time she showed any remorse or even offered to reconcile was when I started filing the divorce paperwork. That brief moment of contrition quickly evaporated, and in the last week, she's reverted to her original stance, insisting that she's right and I'm overreacting. This back and forth is why I feel like I'm being gaslit. It seems so obvious to me that her actions were a major betrayal. Yet I've got my wife and others telling me that it's normal and that I'm the one who's making a big deal out of nothing. Her dismissive attitude only adds to my confusion and frustration. I tried to communicate how deeply her infidelity hurt me, hoping she would understand the gravity of the situation. Instead, she minimizes my feelings, treating them as an overreaction to something trivial. It's like she's rewriting the rules of our relationship and expecting me to accept them without question. This constant invalidation of my emotions is maddening. I feel like I'm being manipulated into doubting my own perceptions and feelings. Her refusal to acknowledge the seriousness of her actions, coupled with her attempts to normalize infidelity, only deepens the rift between us. It's not just the cheating itself, but her inability to recognize why it's a big deal and why I feel so betrayed. I'm at a point where I need to protect my own mental and emotional well-being. I can't continue in a marriage where my feelings are dismissed and my trust is shattered. Her lack of genuine remorse and her insistence that I'm the one who's out of line make it impossible for me to see a path forward together. I'm not overreacting. I'm standing up for myself and my right to a respectful, honest relationship. I'm not getting a paternity test unless my kids ask for it themselves. I have no doubts about their biological connection to me, and even if a test showed otherwise, it wouldn't change how I feel about them. I love them more than anything, and my wife's infidelity doesn't alter the fact that they've been my kids for 19 years. They will always be my kids no matter what until the day I stop breathing. We were definitely exclusively dating at the time. First of all, dating culture was a lot different 20-ish years ago, and exclusivity was pretty much the default for most people. There wasn't this open relationship or casual dating mindset that seems more prevalent today. It was understood that if you were with someone, you were with them alone. Second, before she left for college, we had a long and difficult conversation about maintaining our relationship long distance. It wasn't an easy discussion, but she was adamant about staying together. She even joked that her dad would come after me if I started sleeping around with other girls at my school. That joke carried a lot of weight, indicating how serious she was about us staying faithful to each other. Another clear indicator was the situation with my senior prom. She couldn't attend because she was away at college, and when I suggested going with a platonic female friend, she got very upset. Her reaction showed how much our relationship meant to her, and reinforced the idea that we were exclusively together. To avoid hurting her feelings, I ended up skipping my prom and spent the night hanging out with her instead. While we might not have explicitly used the word exclusive, all these reasons combined with the nature of our relationship before she left for college made it clear that we were committed to each other. The expectation of fidelity was implicit in our actions and discussions. I followed up with the friend who suggested I should have an honest conversation with my wife. She revealed that 10 guys would be on the low end, and mentioned that there was at least one pregnancy scare during those years, which I had no idea about. Honestly, the number of guys isn't the main issue for me. What really matters is that my wife seems completely incapable of understanding why her actions were wrong and why I feel so deeply betrayed. It would make a huge difference if she showed any genuine desire to fix this, but she hasn't. Throughout our conversations, she consistently dismissed my feelings, telling me I was overreacting to what she considered totally normal behavior. She didn't express any regret or consideration for the hurt she caused until she realized I was serious about filing for divorce. Only then did she get defensive and angry, but even in that moment, it was clear her concern was more about the consequences than about my feelings. The lack of remorse was evident. She didn't offer to fix things or suggest ways we could work through this until I had already started the paperwork and notified her that I had a lawyer. It wasn't about repairing our relationship, it was about damage control. This response reinforced my belief that she doesn't grasp the depth of her betrayal. It's not just about the infidelity itself, but about her ongoing disregard for my feelings and our marriage. Her dismissive attitude, especially in the face of such a serious issue, left me no choice but to move forward with the divorce. I believe we can manage co-parenting. Our kids are older, and I've been saving for their college and post-high school expenses for years, so custody and financial issues shouldn't be a major hurdle. We're both financially stable and earn good incomes. I'm open to therapy if she's willing, but at this point it feels more about becoming effective co-parents and finding closure rather than saving our marriage. I've taken steps to move forward with the separation. I hired a lawyer who drafted an intent to separate documents and sent it to her via certified mail. This isn't an official divorce paper filed with the state. It's more of a preliminary step, ensuring she has the opportunity to hire her own lawyer if she wishes to contest it. The actual divorce process will likely span several months,